Something that has been kind of bandied about amongst the NBA circles as we have a bunch of free agents have all found their homes, and we've seen a lot of contract restructuring. Bobby Marks of ESPN tweeted out, there was a healthy debate this past weekend on if the middle class of the NBA has been eliminated with the new CBA. And there are two tiers, the minimum players and the max players. So he went through, now that the dust is starting to settle on contracts around the NBA. And I think it's pretty interesting because he has this year and then the previous 3 years of contracts doled out around the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the percentage of the salary cap, okay, so from 0.8% of the salary cap, which is league minimum, to 4.9%, 2% to 4.9, and then 5 to 9.9, or excuse me, 0.8 to 1.9, 2 to 4.9, 5 to 9.9. Okay, in the first two, like 0.8 to 4.9%, those are all rookie contracts, right? In league minimum guys. And that accounts for 129 out of the 259 players that signed deals this year are 2023-24 draft picks selected in the last 4 seasons of the NBA. Okay? When you look at the maximum salaries, you have alluded to this aspect of it. The new CBA is going to make it much harder for guys to get max deals. Last year, you saw between 30 and 35% or more of the cap. You had 19 guys sign those deals. The previous year, 18. The previous year, 16. This year, only 13 players got the big max deals across the NBA. But the idea that the middle class is disappearing, it may be a little bit fraudulent because guys making between $7 and $13 million this year, 99 contracts doled out in that range. Wouldn't that be classified as, the NBA's middle class, like 7 to 13 million?
I guess that feels like lower middle class to me, but sure, I guess you could pull it in the middle class.
Previous years were 66, 78, and 77. They're at 99 this year. Everything else has stayed pretty stagnant. If you want to go up in the middle class, would you say, like, I don't know.
I would say that the taxpayer mid-level, which is about, I believe, 13 right now, or I'm saying the non-taxpayer mid-level, to 30.
To $30 million?
And I'm talking about your non-max guys.
Yeah.
So the Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grants, with the bottom of that being like Robert Williams, those guys to me are more the middle class.
Okay, and then that would account for 96 players this year of the 259. 96 would have fit in that range that you're talking about. So 14 to whatever $30 million is what you're saying. In previous years, it's right around that same number. So
how many of them are new though?
Are we seeing what do you mean?
How many of those are new contracts signed this year?
That's
where you're seeing that good. It's there right now. And what's interesting is the change isn't necessarily just with the money. It's the years. Because like Tobias Harris,
there it is right there.
Tobias Harris got $50 million, $25 million a year, but it was 2 years. James Harden got $70 million, but it's a 2-year, $35 million deal. And a lot of these have options, and a lot of them have non-guaranteed money. Jonathan Isaac got 5 years, $94 million. The final 2 years are non-guaranteed, with the third year having a partial guaranteed. Only 2 years are fully guaranteed. That is a wide receiver contract.
Are we seeing though that, well, it's a wide receiver contract, but 53 to 15 is a big difference. The NBA pay is bananas.
Yes.
Teach your kid to be 7 foot and shoot. Okay.
Again,
can you do that?
Here's the thing. Still holds true. If you are 7 foot tall, you have a nearly 18% chance. If you are 7 foot tall and a man, you have a nearly 18% chance of getting an opportunity in the NBA.
Really?
Yes. Statistically alone, you have a basically 1 in 5 chance of getting an opportunity in the NBA.
That's pretty
by
good.
Just being 7 foot tall.
Well, yeah.
Because there's so few of them.
There's not a lot of people.
No.
In.
But if you are, there you go.
Do you think that we are going to see this happen, or do we think the league is going to adapt and we'll see less max deals and more of the, you know, I guess what the middle class would be considered then, because of teams having the fear of putting too much money and what that will do to you because of the punitive measures in the CBA, with the second apron being something that they essentially, you don't want to be in that territory because of the fact that you'll lose draft picks, you'll be penalized financially more than you ever have before. And then there's on the court stuff, not just the financials of it, because Golden State, we saw, just said deuces, we don't care,
Which is the
we'll
same
pay
thing
it.
the Clippers were doing too. And this was it was a punitive tax put on the Clippers and the Warriors, but it was also the NBA, the owners coming together and beating CJ McCollum and his representatives into a bloody pulp. Over basically getting an instituted hard cap. And I think they're going to open the CBA back up when the option becomes available to them, because this is probably more punitive than they wanted, because there's got to be some wiggle room, because the aggregation of salaries at the apron, like not being able to swap 2 for 1, or like that's something that they're like, oh, this is maybe worse than we thought it was going to be. And that has been a feeling. I saw one of the Heat media members said that there's only one guy in the entire NBA who understands the ramifications of the new CBA. It's Andy Ellsberg, and it's like, that's funny, because I'm watching the Heat lose players left, right, and center because of their inability to understand the CBA right now. It takes about a full year and a cycle for general managers and their staffs to fully understand the ramifications of every little bit of language. We've already seen something, and it's not a huge deal, in the New York Knicks deal for Mikal Bridges. They had to include somebody else in that deal because of they had to submit to the league's lawyers, a point of clarification.
Yeah.
And this is super nerdy, and it's like, oh my God, but this is what happens when you get a new CBA. The way it's written, where the commas are, all that kind of stuff. Like we have the same kind of thing with when we're talking about like the Bill of Rights and amendments and stuff like that. Like where commas are matter. And so they had to get a point of clarification to get an understanding, and they had to end up having to include another player because of how a player's contract was determined to be a minimum salary contract, even though it wasn't technically a minimum salary contract. So this is how stupid the CBA can get. Yeah, it'll just put you to sleep very quickly. But those are the kind of things on a micro level all the way up to a macro level that affect how this stuff is going to go going forward. Guys like Zach LaVine, guys like Brandon Ingram, they are not getting max deals. They're not.
No.
They're just not. Those are gone. The guys where you're like, you got to hold your nose. You don't have to hold your nose anymore, because what's going to end up happening is they might get a max slot for a year or two. They're no longer getting 4 or 5 year max deals if you're not a max player. With the exception being your own homegrown talent, like a Franz Wagner.
Doesn't that benefit the players, though, in that you'll get to your next contract quicker, which is what they want to get to?
Yes and no, because you need years of service. In order to get the full Supermax, you need 9 years of service. To get the full well,
I mean, you're not going from being a potential max player to out of the league, though.
No, but I mean, in order to get the full maximized earning rights, you need to have an all NBA selection and have 9 years of service. That's where you get the unfettered, holy crap, like 35% tied to the cap supermax. The fun max, which is your rookie max extension, is 25%. What in the agents that I've talked to is that the fight that they say that they have now is not money, because they're getting told no. It's years. And so they might front load it, and they might figure it out that way, which is what you've seen a couple of teams already start doing. You're basically floating money, like Isaiah Hartenstein's deal. It was like, well, he got $26 million a year for the Thunder. It's a great deal. The Thunder gave him a 3-year deal with the third year non-guaranteed. It's a team option. So they gave him $50 million up front, basically, and they said, well, when that happens, Chet's contract's coming up. Shea's going into his supermax. J-Dub's going into his contract. So that way they basically have a $25 million get out of jail free card. Now they'd have to go find another player to replace him, and that's going to become seriously problematic for teams that have 3 max or near max contracts.
Not when you have 30 draft picks.
But that's your way out of it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting, and that's why when I'm down in Las Vegas, I'm really interested to see what transactions happen, because it does sound like a few trades are going to happen when everybody kind of gets in rooms together. Financially, the ramifications of that. I'm obviously I'm most interested in the basketball that happens, but the business of basketball is very interesting under a new CBA for sure.